Good morning, students. Today we are going to deal with the topic related to the statistic, and here we have already studied the Spearman rank as well as the Spearman method. So we have already solved the problems related to the given method. Only the merits and demerits of this Spearman rank method is left. So today we are going to see the merits and demerits of the Spearman rank method. We know that Spearman rank method. So we have already discussed that Spearman rank method, and this method is used for qualitative variables such as efficiency, intelligence, honesty, ability, bravery, beauty, tolerance, color, and the fecundity. So all these quality can be measured by means of the Spearman rank method, and these variables cannot be measured quantitatively. So these are certain variables which cannot be measured quantitatively but can be arranged serially. So if someone asks who is the intelligent, then we can arrange them serially. If someone says who is more honest, then we can arrange it serially. So these variables cannot be measured quantitatively but can be arranged serially. And you know that it was developed by Charles Edward Spearman. That's why the method is said to be the Spearman rank method, and it is used for the measurement of the qualitative variables. And you know that the Spearman method जो होता था, Spearman जो method था, that is used for calculating the qualitative, it's not quantitative data. Coming up to the merits as well as demerits of the Spearman rank method. So merits. Merits normally, the first one, that is rank correlation method, is simple to understand and easy to apply. You know that this method is very simply we can do it and solve it. So it is very simple to understand and easy to apply. Second one is that information given in the form of rank is conveniently followed and then in the form of a quantitative data. So you can say that the information जो टेबल के रैंक के रूप में दिया रहता है हम easily उसे follow कर सकते हैं as compared to that of the quantitative data. So it is easy to follow and convenient to use. Third one is that this method is ideal for presenting the quantitative data and ascertaining correlations. So this method is, you can say that is one of the ideals for representative the quantitative data, and sometimes this method can be also be used at times in case of the actual quantitative data. So where there is merit, there is demerit also. So what are the demerits of this Spearman method is that, first one, this method cannot be used for computing correlation in case of grouped frequency distribution. So where there is a grouped frequency distribution, we cannot apply this method and compute the correlation between the one variables with the another variable. Next one is that this method can be used only for small number of observation. So wherever this method cannot be applied, only after seeing the number of observation we can apply this formula. So this method can be used only for small number of observation. So when number of the observation is large, the computation becomes very tedious and time consuming. So wherever the number of observation is less, there we can apply this formula and method and calculate the correlation. Next is quantitative measurement. So every time we can't apply this method for quantitative measurement. Normally this method is for the you can say that qualitative measurement. Now coming up to the next topic, that is regression. So we have already completed the coefficient of correlation or correlation coefficient or coefficient of correlation, anything what you will say. So we have completed the two methods by which we can measure the coefficient of correlation. So coefficient of correlation will say, is there any relation between the two variables exist or not? But in case of regression, that is the new topic, regression, it shows the strength to which the two variables are related to one another. So what is regression? It was first coined by the Francis Galton in 1885. The term regression, this term, that is REGRESSION. So the term regression was coined by the Francis Galton in 1885. He just want to study the relationship between the height of the offspring. Consider the height of the offspring and their parents. For a few generations, for the conclusion that the height of offspring tends to approach the median position. So it was first coined by Francis Galton, and he just want to study the relationship between the height of the offspring and the height of the parents. And he came to the conclusion that the height of the offspring का जो height है, it हमेशा ये median को approach करता है. So it always tends to approach the median position को approach करता है. And according to him, regression, it is the statistical study for determining the strength of relationship. जो दो वेरिएबल्स है, दो वेरिएबल्स के बीच में जो रिलेशन है वो उसका स्ट्रेंथ कितना है. So it is a statistical study for determining the strength of relation or association between the dependent variable. So the variables, whether they are dependent or independent, if they are dependent, what is the strength, and if they are independent, then what is the strength. So regression is a study for determining the strength of relation or association between the dependent variable and the independent variable for a given population. And it says that Galton, according to the Galton, the regression is the tendency to remain towards the central position. He says that कि regression जो होता है हमेशा central position की तरफ ही tendency approach करता है. Coming up to the main feature of the regression analysis. So what is the main feature of the regression analysis? The regression analysis is used to predict. So it is used to predict the value of one variable from the value of other variable. According to this, the two variables can be identified as, that is, dependent variable or the independent variable. So what is regression analysis? Regression analysis is used, normally it is used to predict the value of one variables from the value of the other variables. Consider one variable if it is x and the another variable if it is y. So what is the value of x corresponding to the value of the y? So according to the there are two type of variables. It may be dependent variables or the independent variables. So what are the dependent variables? So these are the variable whose value is influenced. So its value is influenced, or you can say can be predicted, can be predicted, is called a dependent variable and is represented by y. मतलब ऐसा वेरिएबल जिनकी वैल्यू प्रिडिक्ट किया जा सकता है या फिर वो इन्फ्लुएंस होता है दूसरे वेरिएबल से, उसे क्या कहते हैं? डिपेंडेंट वेरिएबल. So it is one of the variable whose value is influenced, or you can say that it is predicted, and that's why this is said to be the dependent variable. Now coming up to the independent variable. So the variables which influences the values, ये क्या करता है? ये दूसरे वैल्यू को इन्फ्लुएंस करता है. So what is independent variable? The variable which influences the value is called the independent variable, and it can be represented by means of x. So you can say that independent variable can be represented by x. So it influences the other variables, and the variable which is influenced, that is said to be the y variables, or the variables which can be predicted. So the component of the regression model. So what are the different component of the regression model? So normally the regression model involves the following variable. एक regression model में ये सारे variables होने चाहिए. So what are the variables? Then normally the first variable is said to be the unknown parameter. Unknown parameter can be represented by means of the beta. So beta is nothing but the unknown parameter, and it can be represented by this way. And it may be scalar हो सकता है, it may be scalar, or it may be the vector quantity. Scalar or a vector quantity. So unknown parameter is nothing but the represented by means of the beta, and it is unknown parameter, may be scalar or the vector. Next, you know that independent variables can be represented by means of x. Always remember independent variables, that is represented by x, and the dependent variable is represented by means of y. So in case of regression model, y represents the dependent variable and x represents the independent variable. And a regression model related to y, regression model related to y. You know that what is y? Y is nothing but the dependent variable. So y to a function of x and beta can be represented by y is equal to function of x and beta. Next is the methods of regression analysis. The regression analysis can be of two types, that is simple regression and the multiple regression. So what is simple regression? The regression analysis confined to the study of relationship between the normal distributed dependent and a continuous independent variable, and this is termed as simple regression. So what is simple regression? The regression analysis confined to the study of relationship between a normal distribution and the continuous independent variable in term of simple regression. So simple regression we have seen just now. I know that it's very tough to understand, but coming up to the next, that is multiple regression. So multiple regression is the analysis for studying the relationship between the normally distributed dependent variable and more than one. This is nothing but the more than one continuous independent variable, and this is known as the multiple regression. So if the continuous independent variable are more than one with the normally distributed dependent variable, then we used to say that it is multiple regression. And if we used to analyze the relationship between the normally distributed dependent variable and the continuous independent variable, when we used to simply we can say that simple regression is nothing but the study of relationship between normally distributed dependent and the continuous independent variable. And what do you mean by multiple regression? It is the study of relationship between normally distributed dependent and more than one continuous independent variable. So simple, only one continuous variable is considered. In case of multiple regression, more than one continuous independent variables are considered. And how these variables, dependent and independent variables, how strongly they are related to one another. So we are going to study the relationship between these two variables. So for today this is enough. In the next lecture we are going to solve, or we are going to discuss just now what we have discussed during this lecture. We are going to solve it by means of example. So once you have solved the example by means of regression method, then you will come to know what all we have studied till now. So all this theory part is going to be applied when we are going to solve in the examples. So in the next lecture we are going to solve examples related to the regression. Thank you for watching.